Welcome to the regular City Council meeting for Gunter, Texas. We're at 105 North 4th Street, the Public Safety Building. It is June 5th, Thursday, 6:02 p.m. and all notices were properly posted. We have a full quorum. Everybody in attendance, and we'll open up with our invocation or Pledge of Allegiance. Is that in here?
Not yet.
Is that in here? No? Okay, I'll do it. Father God, thank you so much that we can come in your presence together and gather together, and you be with us tonight as we make decisions for the people of this city. This is an important decision to make. We want to do right by them, and we ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. I'm going to slow down today. Okay. We are going to open up with our Director of Parks and Public Services update. There you are, Adam. Come on in.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I'm going to stop for just 1 second.
All right, I'll try to make this brief, but there's a bit of stuff. Good evening, Council. So start with streets on the update. Should be right now, actually just finishing up. We do have no commercial vehicle signs on Kerfoot and McConnell today. And then we've co-located some other signs with those signs, speed limit signs. And police did look at those locations and we're on board with it. The other street address signs and poles will be installed next week, or more additional poles, but those are address poles. We've received 2 out of the 3 containers for fire and streets. My hat's off to Deetra. This is behind the building. We were looking at one-time run containers. Deetra got us brand new containers, and they're tan. And
that's right.
we don't have to repaint them now.
Yeah.
And she got Alan looked at prices. She got a great price. She did for never used containers.
Well, I only got it to this line. She took it down.
Yeah, it was good. It was very good. So saved us some money. We ordered, and we'll have the solar lights up on the police flagpole tomorrow, so the flags can wave through the night going forward. The last 2 weeks we've cold patched 122 potholes in the city of Gunter until we ran out of material. We have 4 more pallets of material that was delivered this week. There's never a shortage of roads. One thing I just want to explain to council is about patching, because it's one of the, like on the customer response system that we have here, one of the biggest things I'm going to get patching. Just for the citizens, everybody else. Center lines normally can be patched with cold patch material. So like if you're driving on a road and it's in the center and it's surrounded on all sides by asphalt, that can be patched. If it comes from the edges, that normally can't be. That takes basically an asphalt overlay and some rebuilding of the road. That's something that we have to contract out, and I have an in the works to bring on contracting to do that. We'll also talk to the county about it. And also one of the other things is panel repairs, because we do have some panels that somebody in the past patched, and the bridge really can't patch concrete panels. You have to replace them. So that is one of the things we'll be doing. Grayson County Precinct finished up Sharp Road, so if you get a chance to look at it, it looks really good. They're going to do their overlay within the next 30 days, but it looks great. It was a rough road, and so they did a great job. I'm meeting with Precinct 3 next week to look at a couple more roads to see if Precinct 1 is full, sort of, and Precinct 3, so I'm meeting with them to see if they can look at a couple things. Just want to tell council that Hunter and Kimberlin roads were finished by Precinct 3 a couple weeks back, but I'll be going forward with an ILA to ask them to grade those roads every 4 to 6 months. Otherwise, we'll lose all that material. We don't want to lose that. We made a substantial investment in those roads. The Woods driveway transitions. I think I explained what happened at a previous council meeting, that there were some, the inspectors, the engineers, inspectors did not adequately account for the amount of material needed in those driveway transitions. So I've met with all the parties and the contractor. And so what we've come up with is a modification in scope that the contractor is going to agree to hold his price to 25% above the original bid price. And this is a very competitive contractor. He's one of two that are extremely competitive. So I think it's a very good deal. And that is allowable. I ran it by Courtney and she said that works. So the only thing is it has to come back to this body to approve that increase of 25%. And that way it won't have to be completely rebid again. So we are changing the scope though, but the effectiveness is no different. It's still the process we're using. It's just a little more creative, but it'll be an effective process for the woods. Onto the drainage study. Eric and Don and I have been working with our drainage consultants, Tignall and Perkins. One of the discussions in scope was the woods. So due to a change in a legal opinion about the city and some restoration of the woods and how they function appropriately, where the city is going to, the goal would be to restore some of these easements to functionality, and then the homeowners would take over the maintenance of them. Tignall and Perkins, our drainage consultants, they examined the engineering that had been done by current city engineers, which is Cobb Finley, and they determined that the engineering that was done was logical and appropriate. That was stopped by then the city manager, Jeff Gibson, so the process stopped, and that was in 2023. So what we're doing now is the woods really doesn't, since our resources, Cobb Finley, the city engineers need to just resume that project, and the drainage consultants will be working on the downtown area, which is a completely separate project. So it's the business area and the downtown residential area. And that's is funded by the MDD. Tignall and Perkins will do a presentation. If y'all have any questions after this is over, please. Tignall and Perkins will do a presentation at the MDD meeting on June 19th to present to them the proposed two-phase process. It is two phases. The estimated cost of phase one is $151,500. The phase two, which is your alternates and some of your deliverables, is $143,000 for phase two. Well, obviously allocated by MDD was $155,000. So there'll probably be discussions about that. I think Eric and I talked about there may be some reductions we can pull out of there. There's some discussion. Some of the public stuff is pretty expensive. So we might be able to reduce some of that type of stuff, that would be appropriate. Trash service, Councilman Richens and the mayor and I, we've been looking at trash RFPs and searching, and I checked with Deidre and she sort of confirmed the city's never done an RFP for a trash service, I don't believe. There's none in the files, so it's never been done before. So we're in the process of doing it. We've gotten several. Salina just went through the process, and working with Salina, they have some very great documentation that we've procured. So we're working on that process, and we'll have a timeline shortly. But that's where we are on the trash service, the RFP. The Freightliner, the big green truck. Staff contacted several entities, some more than once, to ensure we had multiple bidders on the Freightliner. We did not. We had one bidder. $500 is what that truck sold for.
Really? Yeah, we're gonna come back and talk about this at another meeting, what that actually cost us. Because it's not just what we spent on the Freightliner, but it's everything else. The insurance, moving it down here, all of those things to find out that it's not worth anything. So we got $500 for it.
Yeah, they said even the side was not attached. The gauges. It was
Really?
bad.
Well, at least it's not sitting in the backyard.
No, it's still there. They haven't picked it up yet.
Oh, okay.
They have the keys though, and the title, and they paid us. So.
Good.
Yeah. The last is the July 4th celebration. We had a joint safety planning meeting with the Chamber, Police, and Fire, Captain Cameron, Chief Jones, Sergeant Wilbanks to go over planning. It was a really elaborate and it was a well-done meeting. We went over all safety aspects. I would say that it's a challenge from a parking and pedestrian standpoint and from the July 4th. So we went over a variety of ways to work on that. One of the ways we talked about was the possibility that would alleviate some police time as well, and would be shuttling. So the chamber's going to reach out to the school and see if there's a possibility of using the high school's parking lot and shuttling from there. That would make it a lot more easier on that event. We're planning on having a misting tent for heat recovery. So I just added that to the list of, it's actually very reasonable, like $100. And so we'd actually have a misting tent if somebody got overheated. We'll be ordering the park's electrical system, and we'll be bringing in 4 inches of engineered wood fiber to cover the 10,750 square feet of our playground, which has taken a beating through the school year, and it needs it. So we'll be repainting some fabric, and we'll be putting brand new fiber across that playground facility.
I would like to volunteer to man the misting tent.
Oh, yeah.
Brandon needs to be under it.
Yes.
Yes.
And that is all I have, council.
Thank you.
Adam, I got
Sure.
just a few. So Deeker and I talked a little bit before the meeting on the mowing. I don't fully understand what all we're supposed to mow and what we're not, but like there's some easements that I think we're responsible for right across from the elementary school or the school in that lot. At least the stuff right next to the road. I think.
Yeah, no, there are some spots there. They're running about 2 weeks behind right now.
Okay.
They are.
Because I told him it's about an page and a half, and it took me an hour and a half to drive them around.
Yeah, they're running about 2 weeks behind, which
I know we're getting a bunch of rain right now, but as per typical, that's not gonna last.
right.
And that's gonna be, where's Captain Cameron? It's gonna be a fire hazard. Just proud of him. On the dry run creek that runs through the woods, who is responsible for the maintenance and the cleanup of the dry run creek?
When you say the dry run creek, you talking about the main creek that
The
runs?
main creek that comes out to 289.
Between DG's land and the one that we were talking about.
No.
No.
Just
Down the middle of
It's,
the woods.
it's in the middle of the woods.
The middle of the woods. I'm going to let the engineers look at that, but I can pretty much guarantee you that's the woods.
Okay.
That's that is not a drainage easement for the
And,
city.
and I agree with you, but
Yeah.
it's never been maintained.
Yeah, there's
The other part is owned by Preston Events,
yes.
I guess, and that looks like absolute garbage. And that's why when it rains, it runs across the parking lot and into Billy's house because there's nowhere for the water to go.
Well, part of that's parking lots in the floodplain too.
It's still, I mean, you're right. I mean, that whole thing is.
But sometimes we've seen it come up almost close to the pool as well,
But the other thing, and I'd like you to reach out to TxDOT, the culverts on Whispering Winds and Gentle Creek,
I know them very well.
they've like dug down the ditch, the bar ditch on 289 within the last 2 or 3 years. So you've got more volume coming into a culvert that's literally this big, and that's where it's running across 289. They need to get a bigger culvert in there.
Okay.
On both of those, and I know that they're 4 years behind and all this other stuff, but as we improve drainage on the backside of the easement,
Right.
not the right of way, but the easement, whatever we're responsible for, more volume's coming, and it's gonna end up hitting those 2 culverts, and they need to have an adequate culvert in both of those roads.
And I think Eric and I, now that they've been, and I've already emailed Kyle Finley to let them know the change, that because this is new to them too, that they're back on it. So I think we'll be meeting with them and we can bring all those things because
my hope is when we finally get clarity and it's not, well, that's the city, well, that's this. And that Dry Run Creek, when it's determined that that's the HOA or whoever that's supposed to maintain that, when that gets maintained, that's gonna also increase the flow in a good way. It's gonna keep stuff out of people's yards, but it's also gonna send more towards 289. And TxDOT's got it. I mean, we're not creating more water, we're maintaining what should have been maintained for a long time and hasn't been.
yeah, I looked into one of those culverts. It wasn't that long ago, and all the brush should just,
If you look
Move
on the
against
north
it.
side of the one that's on Gentle Creek, so much water is coming through there, it's eating away, it's about to get into Gentle Creek, the road.
okay.
It's completely washing that out.
Part of the problem that you've got with that is that those culverts belong to the Waters of America. You gotta get their permission
So
before you
let's
can
have
do
this
anything.
conversation because it's interrupting the meeting.
Yeah.
Another time with
Okay.
Eric, will you?
Well, we'll have
Don, get
communications
with Eric?
now that we've got
My
confidence.
understanding is that's TxDOT's culvert.
It is,
on both
and
of them.
Eric and I have met with Preston one, what is it, event, the owners of that as well. They're aware of it, and they've asked TxDOT
Yeah.
to remedy that as well. So that'll be something that the two of you, if y'all can get back in touch with TxDOT. And then Dawn, anything that you've got, send that to Eric.
Does the Meadows have a HOA?
Yes.
So they're at the routine, their little
Funny you say that,
3
right?
block.
You can call it an HOA.
It's part of why my day is so crazy.
I'll hire a couple of beavers. That's all they need.
Look. Or something. Okay, so we're gonna go to Mayor Alderman report. I have some announcements coming up next time, so, but not tonight.
Did you want to talk about our staff's training that we do and have it down?
To do what?
The staff's training that we sent them to, our buildings, our permits, our permit
I
tech.
would like for you to talk about the permits training, absolutely. Yes, that we sent Jamie and Donna to.
So last week, Jamie and Donna, remind me, is it BPI? I can't. Okay.
It's, yeah,
So it's BPI training, which is building officials and code services type people get together, and it's like a 2-day conference seminar, kind of like when we go to TML. There's lots of different conferences, law stuff, or just interactive training and help the network. So we investing in our staff to help get their their mindset and see the new trends out there, just to help them learn more and have a learning experience. We sent them to a couple days of training last week. They came back and told us they were really excited about it. I think they really learned a lot beyond just some of the things that they learned from code services and understanding a little bit better the things that we get in as permit wise for Jamie. And then she passes it on to BB, and then I'm reviewing it so we can see the building inspection reports and those types of things. I can act as building official for that as well. So I think it kind of eliminated some things that they don't see just sitting at the counter all the time, to understand the processes and to kind of get their minds more wired to, if you get something in from a permit and someone's asking something, it's not always just, you're just not processing. You need to look at the plans and understand, you don't have to be able to read or do the detailed plans, but know if something's missing of importance before we send it to BB. Because not only does that help us, I'm accountable for that if BB messes up something anyway, right? So I want to make sure that what BB is getting is correct, and that what we see going back out to the contractors isn't contradicting anything like that. So they, have a lot of notes, and I think it was good we appreciate City Council giving us the opportunity to send them to that, because it shows our staff that we're investing in their future to stick with us and learn. And, I think it was good that they kind of actually have some more connections out there. So if they have a concern or an issue going on, they can always call one of their peers in another city now that they know them, have a name to a face, and can call and ask them something to see how they're handling it. Which is great. So.
And then there was a lot of I went to small towns, the TML small towns, when was that, mid-May. So I'll update you guys on the next meeting. There was so much. I mean, it was all day long. There's 5 really, really good sessions. It was just a 1-day, small, very short trip, but it was good information. And what I loved about it is that it wasn't like regular TML where it's everything for all these bigger cities that have charters and stuff. It was all small towns, general law, so it was really, really good for us. So I'll bring back a whole lot of information for you guys. I'll talk about that at the next meeting. So we will move on to our public hearing for comments regarding the City of Gunter Code of Ordinances, Article 3.04, titled Dangerous Structures. So Courtney, we're going to start with our quasi-judicial script and open that up, this way. So I'll read from that so that we make sure we do everything like we're supposed to. So the City Council holds public hearings in accordance with the City of Gunter Code of Ordinances, Article 3.04, to discuss structures the city believes are dangerous and a threat to citizens' health and safety. At the beginning of each public hearing, the city will present its evidence and recommendation. After that, anyone can address the council regarding the same property. Unless someone presents evidence that the structure is safe or that it can be repaired, the structure will most likely be ordered demolished. So owners who want to repair the structure must have a detailed plan for the repairs, including an estimated cost and schedule for completion. Only people recognized by me and duly sworn speakers shall move to the podium when directed, state their name and address, and then present their evidence to make their argument. The council may ask questions of any speaker, including city staff, during the public hearing. The property owner or other property or party interested in the property may also ask questions of the city staff and council. Members of the public who do not have a direct interest in the property will have 3 minutes to make a public comment. The public may not ask questions of the city council, city staff, or the property owner or other financially interested party. After the public hearing is closed, only the city council members will be allowed to speak. The city council will have a discussion and vote to determine if the structure is dangerous and issue an order to either secure or repair the structure or to demolish it. An order by the city council is final, and any appeals must be filed in a district court. So it is now 6:23, and at this time I will open the public hearing for the case number. Do we have the case number, Courtney?
Did we assign this case number?
Did we sign it yet?
Okay, we have not assigned a case number,
Okay.
so I would. 001.
001? Sounds good.
2025-001.
Okay, case number 2025-001 involving structures located at, where's the address here, is 1145 Stonebridge Pass in Gunter, Texas, 75058. All structures being located in Grayson County, Texas, with the legal description being, it is the bridges at Preston Crossing, Section 1, Block K, Lot 230, acres .38. And according to the plat thereof, recorded in Grayson County, Texas, in Gunter. So I would ask anyone who wants to speak to the city council, stand up, raise their hand to be sworn in. Okay, so
And if there's any property owner here,
do I have any property owners here? Any interest, parties of interest with liens or anything like that? Okay.
okay, so just you two.
So then I'll need Eric and, okay, so are you swearing them in?
No, you are.
Okay, so, both raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you. You may be seated. So, and then we do have attorneys present. So we have Courtney Morris present.
Yes, and I represent the city of Gunter.
Okay. So let's see here. So now I'm going to ask the staff, which would be Eric, and then Bureau Veritas, correct?
Correct.
So the two of you to proceed with your presentation in the staff report. Any evidence to council for the record?
Well, most of what we have goes back quite a ways from issues with this particular structure during the actual permitting phase and construction. It preceded me, but we do have documentation from the previous Director of Community and Economic Development and Bureau Veritas for those types of issues with the construction or the lack of permitting and inspections on that property. And then before construction was finalized, an incident happened and the structure predominantly got destroyed by fire. And it's been sitting there, and there was no other permits submitted to rectify it or reconstruct it or finish the construction or fix any of the issues that existed because of the fire. So then the city started proceeding, trying to contact the owner of the property, the builder and the owner of the property, to see if they were going to continue, what their plan was, because we get obviously a lot of concerns from citizens with the burnt out structure, with unsupported wall structures and those types of things. Went in, had Bureau Veritas do a site visit to determine whether the building was safe or not, and then I can turn over their discovery and their evaluation of it from their professional perspective on the safety of the structure or it being able to be rebuilt. So,
Okay. Would you introduce, your Veritas business?
Yes, my name's Ty Chapman. I'm our Director of Operations with Bureau Veritas. We've worked with the city of Gunter since about 2008, 2010. I'm very familiar with this project, although I'm not really in the field inspecting anymore. The previous administration, when we started having trouble, had asked me to come out and take a look at the project. As Eric kind of mentioned, it started off on the wrong foot from the get-go. Inspections, we were called out to do the initial plumbing inspection. It was covered up. We started then advising them, hey, we've got to look at this. There's plumbing licensing laws and everything else. Didn't happen. Foundation got poured. So construction started, and we're still at no approved inspections. So that's when I kind of got involved with the direction of the previous city development director and some staff of, okay, we need to set up a meeting, which we did. We went out, walked through it. It was pretty bad. Lots of issues. I provided the city a lot of the documentation I could find, because this goes back, I think, starting in about 2022 through 23, and up to the fire. And so we made every effort, the city included, to work with the contractor, the owner. Went out, they got it framed, provided them a report, very extensive deficiency report, items to correct, egress, stairs, rear patio at a higher elevation than the living room floor, just, cables weren't stressed properly on the foundation, so on and so forth. So the directives were to provide them a list, we'll come back out and re-inspect them. Well, after the fourth time, we weren't making any progress. And so they were given directives to be shut down until we were provided some documentation by an engineer. That's really all that we could come up with, because we didn't inspect the foundation, we didn't inspect the plumbing. All we could see was what was above grade, and it wasn't that great to start with. And it set a long time. I'll add that it wasn't really poor workmanship. It was marginal workmanship, but it also set exposed to the elements and the weather, things of that nature. So they were shut down, waiting on this engineer report. Well, I think I was called over here 2 or 3 more times because they were back out working again. So we'd have to come back over here. You can't be working in here. Well, what do we need to do to get back to work? Well, we provided that months ago.
Right.
So as it progressed on, and I provided the document that was the owner at the time finally got an engineer to come out, made a report, deemed it. They had made some of our corrections. We did go back and kind of verify some things, but we still said without a licensed engineer to tell us if this is structurally sound, the foundation, so on and so forth, I'm not going to give you the go-ahead. So they provided the letter, came to the city. The person here at the time had emailed it to me. We looked at it. We determined that, okay, based on this stamp and seal, they're telling us that it is structurally sound. They fixed the items that, we had asked them to fix to a minimum standard, which is all the code is to start with. And that's kind of where things got left. Well, and I verified this when I talked to Dieter the other day. I looked in our system. Well, it never really got further beyond that stage. And then the next thing I see a deal on Channel 12 News that this house is on fire and burnt in Gunter, and I knew right where it was when I saw it. And so, with that being said, we had never got to the point of, insulation inspections, construction meter release inspections, any type of gas propane inspections, obviously no final inspections. So to us, where we stopped on the last inspection report, that was it. So as time rocked on, as Eric mentioned, I noticed in our system, excuse me, I believe it was in September of last year, a permit was sent over to us for a code consultation to come out and evaluate the property as far as its habitable state. And we came out, we looked at it. It was failed. The comments were noted. Structures appears to be 3/4 of the way burnt to the ground. It's not habitable. And as long as I've been doing this, there can be some debatable situations on habitable and the definitions of habitable and everything else, but this is pretty clear and obvious. So that was in September. Later in December, another permit was issued for a demolition permit. Inspector came out. Our role on a demolition, whether it be this situation or any other, we go out, we make sure utilities are disconnected so that if they start demoing, they're not getting energized, electrical, gas. Well, we had never given any approvals for utilities to be installed, so there were no utilities connected. The notes were made, no utilities connected, okay to demo. And that was the extent of it until I got notified from one of our inspectors that was over here the other day that had been working on the school. And that's when I reached out to Deetra and Jamie and some of the others and said, hey, what's going on? What do I need to do to help? I didn't realize, I honestly didn't know. I'm through here a lot, but I'm oversee our operations. I'm not out doing inspections anymore. I didn't even know the house was still in the same situation it was in. So I'll be glad to answer any questions or provide any more information that I can, but that's kind of the backstory from start to finish. And obviously in the middle, there were, like I say, a lot of site visits and meetings and with the contractors and, hand holding and, trying our best to get them through that stage, but it just never did happen.
I have a question, Ty. Did they ever have a T-pole set up? Did they have temporary power? What were they doing? How were they operating?
They had a T-pool, they had a
Okay.
permit to start construction, they just didn't get the proper
Okay.
follow-up inspection, they didn't call in inspections.
Okay.
They'd go out there and start doing work, and then we did stop work orders on them.
Yeah. So it never got to permanent power. They never got that point.
No, they never got
Okay.
permit.
Okay. So there's no underground. Oh, that was cool.
Correct.
And these inspections in here from the other engineers are fake? Forged?
Which
Well,
one?
no, it was a questionable at one time. I
Oh,
believe.
yes,
We
yeah.
had to confirm whether or not it was legit, and staff went through the process
Yeah.
at the time to check it.
You guys will swear me in for Tom?
Yes.
You want to swear me in?
Yes, I need to. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so
Yes,
help you
ma'am.
God?
Yes, so one was fraud. We had been dealing with their shenanigans from day one. When they came in, they were given false identification. They gave us insurance because everyone has to show us proof of insurance before they can start
As a contractor.
building.
As
Yes.
a contractor, yes.
And as they walked out the door into the parking lot, I told them, I said, let's go ahead because of what happened with ID, let's call. They canceled it the same day. So we told them they could not do anything until the insurance was redone. And then back to Ty's comment, so yes, they had taken the engineering report and put the seal of another company. And I saw it and I said, because we have trust issues, I said, you're gonna call. I said, because it's faded, there's just something that seemed off. They called and then finally I went back and called. Honestly, because I forgot I'm the one that called. They said that when I spoke with the owner of the engineering company, he says, we have not heard of these people. I'm concerned that they're even using our logo. That's when it got really heated. But then they came back with another one. I did tell Noah, I spoke with legal, that he better call and 100% verify that they are. Yes, it was terrible.
And he did, and it was legitimate.
But this one, but it had taken 2 years to build the house and it was still not done.
But we know for a fact that they submitted a fraudulent document.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they also submitted insurance and then canceled it when they walked out the door.
That's a misdemeanor, isn't it?
But it's irrelevant for our purposes.
Sure. Okay, so thank you, Ty.
I
Do you have
actually have
questions for Ty?
I do. Ty, so I think you mentioned that
this was, or you were talking about the foundation, and I think you said the cables were never stressed. What does that mean?
So in the post-tension foundation system, it's where they utilized, rather than conventional rebar, they used the tendons, the cables, they're put in, and once the concrete is placed, they come out and they do a 7-day and a 28-day tension on them to, that's gives it the rigidity and the strength and the design. Each one's designed differently based on the soil conditions and type of house. So those are, and the way that we know they've been stressed properly, number one, is at the framing inspection, we get an engineer's report on their stressing. But number two, they're pulled out, they're cut off, and all of the little holes, about that big around where the cups are on the end, they're all mortared back in. Well, these are all still just sticking out and hanging out, and half of the ends of the brackets that the cables run through that are supposed to be secured to the form boards, they're just hanging on the outside of the house. So, and when we started asking the questions, and the hold down straps, were just laying out on the side. So we started asking the questions, have you had this foundation? And this was the contractor at the time, which the first one, I think they've switched 2 or 3. He didn't know. He didn't have any idea. So, but I could tell from experience by looking at them, they hadn't been stressed, patched, mortared back in, or anything of that nature.
Okay, and so then there was a fire on this basically unfinished slab. I mean, when I say unfinished, it hadn't been properly secured with the tension and everything to be able to withhold whatever weight was going to be put on it or whatever. But that's what I'm calling an unfinished slab, then had a fire on top of it.
Yes, and yes. I mean, that's what happened, and that was, our presumption and my reluctancy, with NOAA in the city, as far as, number one, we typically don't do the actual foundation cabling inspection. We require the engineer that does do that. We have other things that we look at before it's poured, but that was my hesitancy to even allow them to continue going any further until we found out what had been done or how this foundation was handled and everything else.
So would the heat stress of a fire cause you concern for this foundation because it was never properly finished?
A fire of this nature, in my professional opinion, would. I mean, that was a big house, and I'm sure that was a big fire. And there's plumbing, and there's PVC, there's other things that's underneath that concrete
that was never inspected.
And then after a fire, granted, it's encased in concrete to an extent, but, we don't know the temperature that gets to, if it's damaged, if it's been, harmed, if it was even good to start with.
Okay, and so the reason I'm asking these questions is because many times when there's a fire, people or slabs can be certified that yes, you can rebuild on this slab, it's just fine.
Yes.
Is it your professional opinion that this slab could be rebuilt on?
I haven't looked at it in a long time since the fire, but if you're asking me right now without looking at it, I would say no, I would not. I would not give any type, I'm not an engineer, but I would not give any kind of recommendation to say, hey, I think this would be okay to rebuild on.
And that would be because it had problems before the fire, and then we put a fire on top of it.
Yes, yes. Okay. And but you are correct. We've done it a long time. We've house fires, minor structure fires, where we've had, they power wash it. It's been charred. It's got a little discoloration to it. No big deal. But you see it when it spoils and it pops and it cracks and you have holes blown in it and everything. So, but no, I would have no comfort level whatsoever recommending the reutilization of that foundation.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
And I doubt we could get an engineer to certify it.
So there's a letter in here from Graham Martin, it was evaluated and it has been, it's saying that the foundation is okay.
That was prior to the fire.
Prior to the fire.
Yes.
So the foundation was or wasn't okay prior to the fire?
Well, in their opinion, it was.
And that's all we had to do because the builder was still, that's the process, was that they could get an engineer, because we're not engineers, to sign off on it, the post-tension slab was still functional and worked, even though we didn't believe they, did the post-tensioning correctly, then they could move forward with a legitimate engineering letter this time.
Yeah, how that was deemed and the means and methods of the engineering company to determine that, I have no idea.
Okay, thanks.
But Todd said you never found any evidence of the cables being cut after the tensioning? Because there should have been a good 3 feet or 4 feet of cable left over.
Well, yes, normally at the framing inspection, when we were called out there, normally at that point in stage, they've done their 7-day tensioning. Because I mean, we're house of that size, 3 months, 2.5, 3 months to get it framed and dried in. Well, in that time period, when we get there, they're usually stressed, cut off, and the mortar pocket or the brick pockets, cable pockets are already mortared in. So that's one way we can walk around and look and okay, yeah, it's been stressed. And we have an engineer letter in a normal scenario that says, on this day, a representative came out and the cables have been stressed at the required 3,500, 4,000 psi, whatever. So with that had never been done up until the time this person came out. Because and there was also, we identified, the back side of the house facing 121, the high side. There were corners, blown out. It was just, maybe that's why they hadn't stressed the cables yet. Maybe they knew they had a problem and they were afraid to, because I've seen cables break and cables blow out and, take a whole back half of the house off. So, I don't really, it was just a big mystery because in our investigations, we really couldn't get any answers from the people that should have known what's been done, what hasn't been done. Do you have any documentation of this? Well, no, they haven't done this yet. The house is framed. This is typically done. Why hasn't it been done?
And you also said that the plumbing never got inspected, that the slab got poured over the plumbing and you just didn't see it. So there's a slab that we do not know whether it was ever tensioned properly on top of plumbing that we never inspected.
And electricity that we never inspected.
So-
when we approached them, they said they forgot.
Yeah.
So the normal process for a house that didn't catch on fire and gets to the end and people actually start living in, what culminates your inspection process? What's the final steps for you?
I can walk you through it briefly.
I'm just interested in what the end is.
The end of it is basically, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Does it end with a certificate of occupancy?
The end of it is with a building final.
Okay, building final.
Mhm.
All right, and you never got to that on this house?
No, sir.
You never got halfway?
We got right at about halfway. We never got to the meter release stage for permanent power. As Eric said, they did have a T-pole. We never got to a final stage. We never got to a stage where we received documentation on energy for the insulation and for the blower door and duct blaster testing. Nothing beyond the final.
So
I'm framing.
we have a house that's at no more half inspected. And in fact, the initial inspection didn't occur because it couldn't, with a slab that we don't know whether it was tensioned properly or not. So it never was habitable because it was never fully inspected.
That's absolutely correct, based on the definition of a habitable structure.
It could have never been deemed even definitionally or in reality habitable because it was never finished. It was burned up before you ever finished inspecting it.
That's correct.
And the initial inspections were flawed on top of that.
Yes.
And then when we issued the first stop order, was because they were already in there, going up and down the staircase, putting in the flooring and the windows and everything, and then that's when the city found that, the main staircase was being held together by 2 nails.
And which engineering report was fraudulent? But what kind of engineering report was it?
The one for the foundation.
Yeah, the structural.
That was the
Structural
one I was
engineering.
having such a fit about. I was like, I don't believe.
They were able to dry it in mortar, brick, insulate, everything.
And they were doing it without permits, because they kept calling and saying, we tell them to stop, because they kept using the word, we forgot. So.
I mean, even something as simple as the brick ties failed. So,
Yes.
I'm not even forget that, but,
What's a break?
so when you have, go ahead.
If they're on the outside of the structure, they're a metal strap that goes on, they're galvanized, they go on with galvanized fasteners. And as they put the brick in, they bend the straps over and the straps lay between the courses of the brick and are fastened to the framing members on their sheathing on the inside structurally. That's what helps hold the brick, from any kind of lateral sway or anything of that nature. Metal ties, but yes, that was a 3-trip battle to get simple thing like brick ties. On the plumbing, I will back up. Again, I changed nothing I said because we didn't inspect the plumbing, but I do remember our inspector telling me that, the only thing he got to see of the plumbing was where they actually made the sewer tie in. And that's just because it wasn't under the foundation. It was still an open hole, where they tied the yard sewer into the city stone out. But irregardless, that's just it's important, but that's a small portion of everything else that we needed to see.
Any questions from them? All right, thank you, Ty.
Mayor, I would request that we swear in Adam Adams because I believe he's got some testimony regarding the initial notice of violation that went to the property owner.
Okay. Will you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Do you want him to report on that right now before I go to the next step? Okay.
Yeah. So, Adam, I believe that you worked with me, is that correct?
Yes.
And we prepared a letter to go to the owner of the property, Mr. Lynn Buckley, and was the date of that letter November 14th of 2024?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Okay, and did that letter describe the violations at the property?
Yes, it did.
Okay, and do you remember what those violations were?
I don't remember the whole list.
Okay, was it a violation of section 3.04.002 because of damage and deterioration to the building, making it unsafe?
I remember it was the conditions were unsafe. I don't remember
Okay.
the exact verbiage.
Okay, to the best of your knowledge and belief, did the owner receive a copy of this first notice of violation?
Yes, he did.
And in that notice of violation, was he given the opportunity to repair the structure?
Yes, he was.
And did he ever come in and request a permit to repair that structure?
No.
Okay, that's all I have for just
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will now accept a presentation from the property owner, lien holder, mortgagee, or interested parties, and I don't see any here. And so at 6:50, I'm gonna move forward. Now I will accept public comments. So public comments limited to 3 minutes, and I saw that you wanted to speak, Mr. Gallagher. If you'll hop up here, state your name and address for the record, and then you'll have your time.
Michael Gallagher, 1621 Carston Ridge Court. As far as the foundation goes, I live directly across the street. My backyard looks at that backyard. There was one guy out there working with a tool he stood on that had a little bucket out front and was digging the beams, the beams. It's a grid work that goes underneath. It's got nothing to do with the cables. He dug them too wide. So some of them he covered back in before the cement showed up, but I guess he got tired, and some of them are really wide, and some of that concrete's about 24 inches deep, by the way. The day they came with the cement trucks, he used so much concrete that they ran out of concrete for his job. So it wasn't poured all in one day. And there was Sackcrete bags that were brought out there to try to level stuff out. As far as the rest of the place being built, I saw it being built. I'm not a builder. It wasn't built correctly, and I'm only a citizen, but as far as that foundation is trash. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? Okay, So seeing none, then we will move on to, any staff rebuttal, anything else that you can think of that we need to state for the record for council, or does council have any other questions?
I would like to make some or point out each one of you has a packet in front of you. And I know some of you have gone through the packet. The inspection reports from Bureau Veritas for the initial construction, as well as the after the fire inspection reports are in this packet and provide substantially the same testimony that the representative provided today. That's the packet that says ACERT's heavy construction on the front. Then you've got a packet that has U.S. Postal Service as the first page. This is the certified mailings of all of the notices of this hearing to the property owner and to the interested parties, which are the lien holders. There is also a copy of the initial notice of violation dated November 14th, along with pictures of the structure. I know you all live here and you all know what it looks like, but I want to point out for the record that pictures of the burned structure are in your packet for review, along with the notice of violation and a copy of the code of ordinances that was sent to the owner, telling the owner what had to be corrected on the property, or what had to be rebuilt for this structure not to be torn down. A lot of the history that city staff and Bureau Veritas has gone through is in a packet in a cover page that says Chris Mims in the upper left-hand corner. This is all the documentation of all of the city's attempts to get the owner to comply with the City of Gunter Code of Ordinances when he was building the structure. The packet that's the cover sheet is Red River Title. In order to do our due diligence in notification of any person that might have an interest in this property, the city contacted Red River Title to run a run sheet. A run sheet is not a full title opinion. It just lets us know who all out there has an interest in this property. And behind that is a copy of the letter, notice of this hearing, sent to each person identified by Red River Title as possibly having an interest in this property. Therefore, I would submit that proper notice of this hearing was sent to all parties, and all parties had the opportunity to attend and provide testimony. And that's all I have.
Can I ask a question? What has been, I don't know who this is for, but have we heard anything from the property owner at all?
The only thing that we've had is, what date is that?
It was after we had our first offer.
Yeah, we did
to
offer.
try to
They
do a
filed for the demo permit December the 19th. And then when the mayor and Courtney gave us the notice, then I was asked to reach out to them first. He seemed on board, but then I called back and I was being sent straight to voicemail. And I had tried on 3 different occasions.
And we did meet
still,
what he was asking us to do, which was a more definitive phrase within the offer that limited how much money we could put on the lien of the house. We did that. We went back and did that. And then he ghosted us. So
Was
Yes.
the
he had every
demo-
opportunity.
And the letter, and even before I mailed all this out, I did let him know that this was coming.
Was the demolition permit issued?
And he paid and never did anything.
We never heard back from a vendor. So when that happened, I kept asking. They said, well, he hasn't sent a vendor back in yet. Paid for the permit, but the vendor, the person who's gonna do it, never came back in. And so I asked Jamie to follow up with the email and include me into it. That's when we got a response, and he called and he said, well, I want this limited with the amount. Then we went back and I had Courtney, which cost us more time, right? We're doing all these things to try to get this finished. And we went back and we jumped through those hoops and put in a new phrase to make him more comfortable, and then he completely ghosted us and went away. So he's had multiple opportunities to make this right, including coming tonight, and he's not here. So because we don't have the rebuttals back and forth where he speaks because he's not here, and then we have to come back and forth, I'm going to go ahead and state that comments have now been heard from all wishes, all whose wish to speak. Therefore, now close the public hearing at 6:57 p.m. and the council will now deliberate on this matter.
Do we have anything to deliberate
Open up
about?
to you guys if you want to
I thought we were turning it down.
make any other points before we move forward with the decision.
I mean, clearly the things fail on every metric to measure it by, including the foundation. And
From the start.
From the start.
Yeah.
It was done right from the beginning, and ignoring the inspector and going forward with construction without an approval after they were told they couldn't do it, and pouring the slab on top of the plumbing when they said we haven't inspected it yet.
Right.
Submitting false engineering documents, I can't think of anything much worse than lying about engineering documents.
For real.
That's a life safety
That's
question.
really bad, yeah.
But was that by the builder, by the owner?
Doesn't matter.
I know.
It's on the building permit.
Yeah.
It's,
Well, I move that we issue an order to demolish the structure.
I'll second.
Okay, so we probably need to do some legal stuff here, correct?
We
Courtney?
do,
We're gonna
we
go through
do.
these steps.
I would suggest that your findings in this case, I believe that the city's provided evidence that this was a properly noticed and called public hearing.
Yes.
That all proper notices were sent to the owners, lien holders, mortgagees, or other interested parties consistent with city ordinance. And based upon the evidence presented, the city council finds that the property located at 1145 Stonebridge Pass, Gunter, Texas, is in violation of the ordinances relative to substandard structures under Chapter 3, titled Building Regulations of the City Code of Ordinances, and that the structure is determined to be unsafe and dangerous. It is dilapidated and unfit for human habitation and constitutes a hazard to health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Gunter, is a nuisance, and is likely to endanger persons and property. Further, it is not feasible to repair the structure in compliance with the City of Gunter Code of Ordinances. The owner, lien holder, or other interested party is hereby ordered to remove or demolish the structure located at 1145 Stonebridge Pass, Gunter, Texas, 75058. All structures being located in Grayson County, Texas, by no later than 30 days from the date of this order. Having found that the structures to be unsafe, the City Council also finds and orders that the structure is unoccupied. In the event the owner or lien holder or other interested party shall fail to comply with this order in the allotted time, then the owner, lien holder, or other interested party shall demolish the structure, including removal of all demolition debris, not later than 30 days from the date of this order, which is June the 5th of 2025. And failing that, the city may, without further order of this body, secure the structure and cause the structure to be demolished, and may attach a lien to the property for the expenses of the same in accordance with city ordinance. Should the property owner violate the terms of this order, the city may seek administrative penalties in an amount not to exceed $1,000 per day.
So I move that what she said.
So
I
we
move
ordered it.
that we declare it a dangerous structure and issue an order to demolish the structure.
We've got Cindy with her first.
And include all the findings that were
Yes.
listed in there.
And include all the findings, exactly.
Cindy with a first,
Second.
and Wade with a second, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. The matter is now concluded at 7:02 PM. All right. Okay, so we are moving on to, we've issued our order, so we're moving on to number 5. To discuss the memorandum of understanding, MOU with the GISD concerning the future access to the school lift station at 200 West Elm Street, Gunter, Texas. So, Adam, do you have a I mean,
No,
we've
it's
kind of
just,
gone back and
it's
forth,
just,
Courtney, with that.
yeah, I'll give a brief recap. So, one of the things that council had asked for was a contract or some device with the GISD to ensure that we would potentially have access, if we needed it, to the lift station located on the school property. I had talked with Scott Martindale. Courtney had made some suggestions. The agreement was that it'd be an MOU would suffice. And so that's what was created, which is just basically the statement both parties are willing to do that, because neither party had enough specifics at the time.
We don't know what's
So
in an agreement.
if you were really doing it, you'd be reserving capacity, things like that. We don't even know. So it is just it's something both parties would agree to in the future if it were to come about.
So do I have a motion to move forward? Again, back to parliamentary procedure, I would need a motion to move forward, and then I would need a second to even open it up for discussion.
I'll make a motion to move forward.
Okay, I've got William with a first,
Second.
got Cindy with a second. Now we can discuss this MOU. Decide whether or not you guys want to move forward with this in the event that we purchase that property. And again, the reason that we didn't put the language into the actual purchase of sale is because none of us, either side, know what that looks like to have a firm agreement that we're bound by. Because we don't know what we're gonna need and they don't know what they want to get. Make sense? As far as the lift station goes, we may never need to get to access it. Or there may be access to it that we don't wanna participate in. So it's really just, we come back to the table at a later date
Where are we with
to
the sale?
discuss that we're both being flexible.
Where are we with the sale?
Well, remember, we spoke about this and said that this was something we weren't comfortable moving forward with the sale until we had this. That's what this is, rather than putting it with the purchase agreement. It's the MOU prior to the purchase agreement, okay? So it's two separate things.
It's pretty formal.
Be able to keep our options open at least.
Yeah. I mean, I like it because we're not bound to improve anything. If it's something that we're not gonna be using and we don't need it, we're out of the discussion entirely.
Keeps the future open.
But if we do need something, then this is a mutual, it's an understanding that we'll work together and we'll pay our part to be able to use their lift station. If they're open to allowing
Put
us
in
to
our
do
own
that.
lift stations under $1,000.
Is the lift station, I
Yeah,
don't know, Eric, is
And it
the
would
lift
take up
station required
space.
for any construction downtown?
It truly depends. We don't know what the pressure plan is. We don't know what kind of
Right.
developments. We don't know completely what might go down that might need to be improved, but most likely,
but what'll
the lift
exist at the
station
time.
we do what our vision is down there.
That
And
lift
other
station-
developers too. Private developers might need that too.
If you develop
Sure.
a park more,
Right.
We have
I'll just say right now, currently the bathroom utilizes the lift station. We already
Yeah.
utilize the lift station.
Right.
So, but if we were to increase capacity, you might have to upsize that lift station.
And then we would have to work together to do that. So,
As far as a priority for the downtown plan, Big Dog, would Walnut being completed be more of a priority than the parking lot, lift station and all that other stuff? I'm just, from a fiscal standpoint, we've got a set amount of money. we're talking about spending a pretty good chunk on something that we may or may not need soon,
That's NDD money.
that we're paying back.
What? We are?
Well, I mean, the developer's gonna pay for a significant portion, I would think, of Walnut. So we haven't gotten to the point where we have any engineered or design concept plans, other than what was shown conceptual on the PE on what that road would cost to do it at that design criteria. So I think they're both important, but the Walnut Street's more gonna be a private developer driven cost overall. We haven't even approached the topic of how much it's gonna cost and how much he might ask for MDD if they're still amicable to doing it, which they've said they have, but it's just been an unwritten memorandum of understanding.
What do you mean that we'll have to pay back? It's not a
The
loan.
MDD, they believe they would help Walnut because it helps economic development. It'll help the other lots down there that have gone up in costs develop too.
Well, I'm talking about the parking lot that they've already agreed to pay for.
And the parking lot they agreed to pay for because they believe that's economic development to help spur the rest of downtown so we can get those smaller tracks developed. And Parks and Recreation is part of economic development from an MDD standpoint as well. The funds can be used for
Are we
that.
paying the MDD back?
No.
No, they have $1 million something of their own money that they have right now.
We're not having to tap into anything?
The only resources that we would have to tap into is if we're going to do
We
the
chose
parking
to
lot.
do
If
something
we
with it
put in a
to
bathroom.
build on, to build on it.
And even then, when we do development of that parking lot or anything outside of the park perhaps, could be a public-private partnership too. So if someone comes in, they wanted to do some kind of facility that increased the capacity of the lift station, we could work with them on them covering a large portion of that too. And I don't know what the sewer and water down there is gonna have to be improved for us to develop it, and some of it's in the floodplain, so we got some reclamation, some detention, but that's another reason why our drainage study is gonna help us determine some of that too. Because some of that land's sitting down there still undeveloped because of that.
Right.
So I hope that answered your question kind of.
It did. I guess I don't see I think it's a convenience. I don't know that I see an economic benefit of a parking lot. Right now, maybe at some point, but
At some point, I'm almost guaranteeing it will, because if you go, I mean, that's why Salina, for example, is doing a parking garage, because their downtown businesses want to grow and thrive and do more downtown. They don't have parking people do, once they do parking garage.
and now we're gonna have a piece of land we can build a parking garage.
We'll have the land.
Surface parking to start with, let's baby steps.
Well, we can already use it in the
Let's-
park, right, Adam?
Yeah, we can use it for the park, we can use some improvements to it, but
They have a problem with
Right.
parking in the park where they have games and stuff.
we need to get some pavement actually put down on the right of way that currently exists. That's one good thing, is we're not gonna exact right of way from someone that's gonna develop, because it's already there. So they know what land they have to work with already, at least.
So can we charge for parking?
Off topic.
$50 bill.
Off
Well, I'm
topic.
sure the one that's gonna be out there collecting.
So tonight is whether or not we want to approve the MOU with.
So this MOU doesn't serve any purpose if we don't go forward with the land purchase.
Exactly.
It should have some kind of termination clause in there saying that this goes away if we don't buy the land. We haven't had that. And the last recital has a typo. We got desire and wish together. Which one is it? You want to desire or wish?
There he does, Courtney.
I like
He takes you
both.
back to level. Brings you back to level.
Well, thank you.
MOU termination, okay. Well, I can add that if you wanna go ahead and vote on, let the mayor sign it, and, I'll get that provision added and the typo corrected.
To move forward with a termination clause.
Yes.
And I'll take both.
Okay, so I move that we accept the memorandum, the MOU concerning future action to the school lift station, and with adding a termination clause to that memorandum of understanding.
All right, I have Cindy with a first. Now, all in favor?
Aye.
You checking me or what? I didn't hear anything.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, so 4-0, that motion passes. Okay, so discussion regarding legislative updates with our city.
No, what about the
No,
emergency
6.
funds?
Just went right past that. 3 days. days of this craziness, and I can't think. I'm glad I'm not voting. I'm glad I've got to abstain because, man. Discuss, consider, and act upon emergency funds to replace the phone lines and system from Frontier to GCEC. I don't know why I skipped over this one because it's the one thing this week that we did that is amazing and gives me energy to actually say this. So I thought I was going to have to come for emergency funds and ask you guys for help because our phone systems got hacked not once but twice. And our system is older than dirt. It's time for an upgrade. I don't know if it's ever been upgraded since they installed phones here. It's terrible. It's awful. We did some work with GCEC. Dietrich got on the phone with them. They heard lots of interesting words. Actually, Frontier.
Well, we got attacked about 8 months ago with robocalls.
It's been driving us
If you ever
crazy.
come in and all of a sudden you hear the phone ring and it quits and it ring and
It just
goes
won't
on.
stop.
Oh, it won't stop and all day and then you're twitching. It's terrible.
Yeah, so we got hacked and they ended all of our stuff. We're all safe. Nothing bad happened. No money escaped. Nothing was compromised otherwise, except our phones are terrible. So GCEC came back with a contract that I was thinking I was going to have to ask you for money, but we're actually saving $1,100 a month.
Wow.
A month.
What's the contract for?
Very exciting. So it's for our entire phone system. So we'll have everything upgraded to replace everything, including these old phones that really don't even work. And what was it? Maybe 3 weeks ago that we went from phone to phone, trying to just. Eric still has police department being transferred over. We can't.
You could
The
get
lines are
Frontier to
so
fix
messed
it.
up. They can't
To
fix them.
replace them with what?
Jeez.
We're talking about
What phone, what are they gonna replace the phone system with?
With a new phone system.
with brand new. Everything is brand new.
Kind of.
Landline as well, not
Yes.
DOE.
Also
Yes.
landlines?
Yes. Yes.
They don't have to put their finger in it anymore.
Yeah. We're coming
No
into
more
this
this.
century.
Y'all have
Out of the
you
last
did the
one.
switchboard.
There's
Cameron, do
originally
you
a
have the
conversation.
email pulled up? I
Someone
left
had
it on my
mentioned voice over
desk
IP,
so
and
that
we don't
you
have
can
the
know what
infrastructure.
Yeah.
thing the
Yeah.
phone was.
We're getting there.
Because I don't have my information.
Infrastructure for
They're
POE.
talking
So really what we have right now versus what we're gonna have,
Yes, old fashioned.
we're gonna be into the new century and still save $1,100 a month.
So Dietrich's gonna have a long 50-foot cord with one of those little wedges on the back of her phone.
She can walk there to my desk and her desk with the cord.
Now-
Who's the current POTS line provider?
Frontier.
Frontier, so GCEC is gonna replace that. So we'll stay with the copper lines until we can get the fiber.
Which is on the way too,
Fiber's
because
coming.
they're bringing that.
I still hope or suggest
No,
it's
not
just
GCC.
No,
He was talking about Frontier bringing it since they're right here at 6th Street.
Frontier, ironically, is
Yeah.
actually, well, they already have it here. They've
They
had
have
it
it
here
at
the whole
6th Street.
time. But now we'll be able to access it. And that's actually at the next upcoming meeting, we're talking about that. Aren't they here on the 19th? So,
Which will reopen the discussions with GCEC.
So,
Yes, I think the
It
fax
will.
line,
it will.
right, Cameron, the fax line, the fire alarm line, those were the two we were talking about. And I think there was a third one that we moved to stay hard line until. Those are the one.
Seriously, those will have to come back to you guys for all of
So-
it. We just saved $120 a year.
So in short, the results will be that it'll be a voice over IP solution.
not immediately.
how-
No, that's not what we're talking about right now, we're just talking about,
Not
Yeah.
immediately.
we're just talking about replacing carriers and, and getting a new.
Let him finish,
phone
he's gonna tell
switch.
you everything.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're telling, I thought you were asking.
No, I'm telling you.
No, he's telling you. He's trying to explain
So
what you're asking.
it's a voice over IP solution for the current landline configuration that's in place today. So I talked to GCC earlier. So it's my recommendation we hold on to some of the POTS lines for backup and for fire alarm monitoring and for fax lines and some things like that. But the solution that they're offering is to take the current numbers, put it through their data center, connect it to us via our internet connection, and a voice over IP solution, replace all the phones to be on the network, the data network, within the current infrastructure that's in place in this building today.
Are we doing a lot of faxing? For real?
So what
A
happens?
lot of
when-
the courts, you'll believe,
You can't send an email.
They do fax it, they'll fax it and mail it.
So will this VoIP solution work if the power goes out? Since it's coming over.
To keep those.
So-
We have a backup.
So we can
Specific
still
answer to that question is, I think there's some infrastructure things we need to consider within the building to make sure it's supported.
Yeah.
But there's currently some battery backups in place, but those will need to be evaluated on whether or not they can sustain what it is that you're describing.
Yeah.
We do have a backup generator that we're very proactive about using in power outage situations, but there is that component where there has to be a battery backup in between the time frame of the power going out and the generator kicking back
Yeah,
on.
because as soon as someone unplugs the router by accident, there goes all of the VoIP, so.
Correct.
Yeah. So it'd be wise to keep some of the old.
So
stuff
we're
as
keeping
well.
hard lines like for
It's a
the
blend.
911, I
Okay.
mean, what are we keeping hard lines for?
So that needs to be specifically evaluated for exactly what, the fax line is one we know. Monitoring of the fire alarm system is kind of twofold, depending on how that's configured. We just need to validate which current copper lines are being used that are required, independent of the phone system that our staff uses day in and day out to answer phone calls, receive phone calls, make phone calls.
Okay.
So we don't need to act upon emergency funds.
I
So
put it on
we
the
just
deal
need
because
to-
I thought I was gonna have to ask you guys for money.
So we just need to approve what?
Nothing.
Yeah, they weren't asking for, that was part of it, it was just a 3-year contract and
Yeah.
no money up front and
Yeah,
$415 a month.
It was
Wow.
less.
So there's
Wow,
nothing
that's
to
it?
approve.
Yeah.
Just letting
And
you
they'll
know
do
I'm
the
saving
install.
money.
They'll do the
Isn't
install.
that awesome?
Well, of course.
Hang on,
Yeah,
that's
that
approved
explains
at the
everything.
moment.
At the moment.
If I ever need a
This
car,
is-
you're going.
This is, we're gonna keep the existing handsets and the existing switch that's in the building for now. What we're talking about right now tonight is we're only changing carriers to GCEC.
Yes, but we're getting new equipment too.
No, you keep saying no, Cindy, but I want everybody to slow
We're not
down.
getting,
No, you cannot
We're
switch
getting
voice
new
over
equipment.
IP without buying new handsets, and that takes money.
We're getting new
We're
equipment.
getting it all,
We're getting
Yes.
everything new.
Yes.
How are we gonna do that without spending money?
because it's part of the 3-year contract, believe me,
Right.
I've asked, I said, we're not having to pay for the fancy phones, and he said, no.
I had to
There's
call them
nothing
back
up
again
front.
and ask again.
It's just
Phones
a
are gotta be
3-year
compatible
contract,
with
for
I'll send you the
the
agreement.
IOP system.
Yeah, please.
I'll send you the agreement.
So over the 3 years of agreement, I spoke to the gentleman earlier, the amount that we're paying monthly incorporates the payment of the hardware in conjunction with the service also.
It's
And it still is
amortized
less
over
than
the
what we're
3
paying
And
for
it's-
Frontier already?
Yes.
Now, do we
Right.
know,
Do I-
maybe you guys,
It's amortized over the length of the contract.
Yes, sir, over 3 years.
So
Yeah, we're-
and-
we're
and
locked
that
in a
amount is
3-year
less than what we're
term.
paying now.
That's correct.
and then do we know yet if after that, like a renewal, that it'll go down because we've already now paid for the equipment?
So it's very much my recommendation, and I believe Councilman Stevens would agree with this, is that this is a Band-Aid to what we're dealing with right now in the
Right.
environment that we're in right now. We need to rapidly move ahead into a better solution. This is not the long-term solution for Gunter, Texas, okay? But this is a solution to get us pressed forward, relieve some of the stresses on the system today,
Yeah.
and allow us to get ourselves wrapped around with the future of IT and the technology solutions we need to have in place for both this building and future sites, including the PD and any other type of structures that are city-owned.
Okay, so
Doesn't-
Cameron, have you talked to Grayson Collin Electric?
Yes, today.
So how are they proposing that we do voice over IP now? Over what?
Our current internet connection.
doesn't our internet connection suck though?
Well,
That is a vulnerability. They've got some backup components that are available as part of that, that can be used in the absence of the internet. We're also working on adding a FirstNet solution for failover. It's not designed to support the whole building. It should, although not confirmed, should be able to support. I will tell you, getting fiber in here tomorrow is really the best, most reliable solution to be in place there. But yes, that is the weakest link for us right now, is our current internet connection status, but we are working on that also.
well, it's not a weak link. The current internet service is coax, and it is has a lot of latency problems.
Yes, sir.
And voice over IP is extraordinarily susceptible to latency problems. You're gonna end up sounding like you're talking underwater. You can't just switch over voice over IP because you want to.
You'd have to do it once we get fiber.
You have to do it after you get fiber. That's what I'm saying. Everybody just needs to slow down. You can't just change the phone systems like that.
Our next,
There's a
we're
lot of
connecting to fiber,
infrastructure that has
next
to go in there
meeting
to
is
support
exactly
those
what
voice
we're
over
doing.
IPs.
Our next meeting is exactly what we're doing. Frontier's coming in to show, they already have fiber here, it's been here the whole time.
I thought we had no fiber.
It's at what, they said?
Sixth Street.
Sixth Street? Yeah, no, they have it here.
So,
It's been here the whole
It's
time.
just not too.
but what about Grayson Collin Electric? They're the ones that provide the service.
That's what.
They are, we're tapping into it.
We're gonna get their fiber
We're
or
gonna get-
Frontier's fiber?
No, we're getting the system through GCEC, but they're tapping into the fiber that's here. We'll be tapping into that fiber.
Does this
Because
solve
this won't.
our hack vulnerability problem?
Well,
GCC
okay,
confirmed that is yes.
It
Okay.
does. It does.
Right.
That was
That's
the
what
main
we're
thing.
trying to solve
But we
tonight.
didn't actually get hacked. We got socially engineered at the phone company, right? Was there an actual hack on the
No.
on the LAN?
Not on
here?
our,
Not on the
no,
pods.
No.
through the account, through the back end.
So that's a social engineering attack
Yes,
through
yes.
the phone company that actually never touched it here.
It never, that's what I'm saying, it never had,
So
never
hacks,
breached
The
a system.
GCEC that we're trying to get done will solve that.
We'll solve that problem.
And that's all this is for.
Yes, and the ladies, everybody that's up here during the day having to try to work, these phones do not stop. It
Because
will
of the
drive you
robocalls.
insane, yes,
Frontier
because
will
they're,
not stop.
they've been taken over, so then that's part of it.
So I make a motion that we move forward. I don't even know that we need to.
We already
Have a
did,
motion?
because I saved you money and
Okay,
gave us
well
better
then,
stuff.
let's move on.
Yes, bless it.
For information.
Okay, well, let's roll.
You could ratify it. You could ratify it. Yeah. I just sent you all the
Work with
contract.
Tetra and GC, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Keep it as one provider. Let's
So what
hard-
we're
it's hard
already
to say.
experiencing right now, we just solved the problem and saved ourselves.
It's hard to
some
say
money.
that, okay,
No
so
more hacking.
Frontiers, who we got a phone system through, but we're getting hacked, and now we wanna go to Frontier and say, hey, we want your internet. It's like,
Yeah.
well,
Okay,
is it?
so now we, yes,
So
There's money if you don't, if there's already money, if you're not, yeah, I don't think you need a motion for this. It's just a discussion.
yeah, we were just, yeah. I thought I was gonna have to need a motion, because we thought before the contract came back, it was gonna cost us more.
And then Guido came in and made a good deal for us.
That's right. So let's move on to our legislative updates.
Okay, and the last time I was here, I gave y'all quite a big document.
Oh, yeah.
I updated it again, but it was before the legislature adjourned. So I'm just gonna talk about a couple bills that I know have passed and have been signed into law. House Bill 9, that was the bill that increased tax exemptions from $2,500 to $125,000. That's been passed into law. House Bill 1893 has to do with open records requests. That one, city staff no longer has to redact license plate numbers before responding to open records requests, which is a big deal for city staff because those are videos and it's a big deal. So it's a good thing for cities. House Bill 30. Let's see which one that was.
So everything was finished on the second, right?
Yes.
Okay.
House Bill 30 repealed provisions authorizing cities to adopt a property tax rate that exceeds the voter approval rate without holding an election in a year following a year in which a disaster occurs. So it has to do with how you adopt your budgets. It's makes it harder for you to raise money in a year after a disaster occurs to increase the tax rate. House Bill 4215 preempts city regulation of delivery network companies.
What do you mean, like Amazon? So GPS? If they want to access easements, come in and run all their stuff, we can't say
Well-
anything or do anything to stop them.
That's a different bill, and I think that one got hung up. I don't think that one passed. If I remember correctly, this one had to do, a lot of cities were using, looking at Airbnb and VRBO, to determine if people were renting properties for,
Oh,
temporary, rentals.
okay.
So this limits, I believe this is that bill that
The
limits
ability to do that.
the ability to do that.
So,
Then we've got Senate Bill 1008. Let's see which one that one was. Preempts sound regulations for food establishments. So cities, this is a big deal where you've got a lot of residences and kind of mixed use areas, and you got people complaining about music at the local restaurant. Well, cities can no longer regulate that. So that's effective immediately.
Are you saying then the noise ordinance would not,
Come into effect.
it would be?
Preempt
like it would
sound
just be like-
regulations for food establishments that limits the city's ability to require permits, licenses, and certificates for food establishment.
Only for food establishments.
Uh-huh.
So if the neighbors
You cannot adopt local regulations or fees for food establishments in most cases. For example, state law provides general regulation for food trucks but does not address where or when food trucks can operate. Similarly, state law provides general regulations for grease and food waste disposal but does not specifically address where and how to dispose of those materials. It would also require cities to allow overnight food service deliveries and amplified sound up to 75 decibels for food service establishments. So areas where this,
Can come to the
Yes, the
neighborhood
ice
at
cream
1
truck
a.m.
go through the area.
you are preempted from those regulations.
Or the taco stand.
So my neighbor, when he has a big party, he just
Right.
has to get
Well,
the
that's
taco
different.
truck
He's
to
not
go
a
park in
restaurant.
front of his house.
That's not good.
As long
Well,
as
you
it's a
know,
food truck.
I'm not gonna go there.
So we see a
I'm
lot
saying,
more.
well,
Then you got Senate Bill
Construction, I went straight for,
1062.
you know, I can't regulate.
I thought this was gonna be really good at first for cities because it was gonna, it allows cities to publish notice in a digital newspaper instead of publishing in
Right.
notice in a newspaper. However, the limitations on that is that the digital newspaper has to already exist. It has to have a subscribership of a certain number. So
amount of
basically,
people.
yeah.
But you're still working with the same people.
So it's not, yeah, it's
still
not gonna
sending it
help
to
us
the
the way I
same
thought it
place.
was going to because there are too many.
It's better to listen to that.
Well, good, maybe it will help us.
It will help us,
Okay,
because the
good,
Democrat already has that established, they established it years ago.
good, because I was afraid that that was not gonna help as much as I thought, because it's not, some of our cities, it's not gonna help as much. And then House Bill 1998, I think Deidre already sent something out on this, increases the competitive bidding threshold from 50,000 to 100,000. That one was sent to the governor, so you no longer have to competitive bid under, or contracts under 100,000.
That's nice.
That's good. That's good for cities. So those are the ones I know have passed. I will take time before our next meeting to go through the rest of the list and see what actually passed and where we are and give you a better update next time. That's it.
I'm waiting for y'all. Let's see, I'm telling you, I'm tired. Okay, so now we're gonna move to council business executive session under 551 to consult with the city attorney about the 0.71 at 7:30 PM on BNSF agreement. That I hope we're at an end to. I know, so we can explain everything. Yes.
She had the whole thing.
Okay. All right, we're reconvening into open session at 7:50. We do not have any action to take tonight, so we are adjourning at 7:50. That was easy.